authorized to fire at will.
Hey, good Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon if you're in the right location or the wrong location. Maybe it's the wrong location. If it's Saturday afternoon for you already, you're in the wrong location because you're not in my time zone or any following time zones. And everybody knows that central time zone is the only one that matters. We here in flyover country truly do appreciate everything that all you flyover people do. So anyway, thank you very much for being here. This is not an episode of Libertarian Lowdown. You see the title. I'm branching out instead of just having like Army guys, soldiers and Marines on. Now we're going to be bringing on a Submariner, and not the superhero Submariner from, I think that's like DC Comics or something. I don't know. I'm not a comic book guy. That's the closest comic book reference you're going to get from me ever. But I'm going to be bringing on a guest that I was made aware of as I was doing research into, well, you guys know who I've been researching, but the more research that I did, the more they told me, hey, you got to reach out to Tom Weiler, reach out to Tom Weiler, reach out to Tom Weiler. And I'm like, okay, I don't know who this is. So I did some work and had my wonderful researcher, Natalie, reach out to Tom and start talking to him because I'd heard some things. And she said, yeah, you got to talk to this guy. He's interesting. So, and he is very interesting. And true to form, I like to surround myself with people that are clearly smarter than I am. And that's not hard to do. But in this case, Tom he's well educated. Let's just put it that way. Tom is very well educated, and he will outshine me. And I had the wonderful experience of being able to read a paper he wrote on national defense and national defense spending. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that just a little bit. But we'll be bringing him on in a minute. While I'm getting ready to bring him in, I want to, of course, a big shout out not only to Natalie, my researcher, but also to my permanent show producer, Ryan Schultz, who is in memoriam. Thank you so much to him and his family and the way that he prepared. They have wonderfully graced the channel with a lot of support in the last couple of months, and I'm very thankful for that. And so Ryan will forever be our permanent show producer here. Channel members, thank you very much for all that you do. And well, if you have a question that you'd like to ask Tom today, feel free to hit us up with a super chat or something like that so that we definitely see it. Channel members, once again, you guys do a great thing. You help keep the internet and electricity going here at MBRR Media. And without you, we couldn't do it. And if you like, after this, come back and hit that hype button. Want to get this video, this stream out into the algorithm, because Tom has some very interesting ideas on a lot of different things. If you read the bio, he has the experience to be able to talk about it. And so we're going to bring him in and find out why he's running for Senate in the United States, or at the federal level here in Minnesota, U.S. Senate. We're going to find out why he's running and why he's choosing to go to the primaries this year, which seems like everybody who was up for nomination or endorsement decided for some strange reason this year, all the Republican candidates for Senate decided they were going to go to the primary. I can't think of a reason why. I can't think of a single reason why all of the candidates have decided they're going to do that. But here we go. Without any further ado, we're going to bring in my guest. Tom, thank you very much for making time for this today. I know it's campaign season.
Of course, TC. Thank you very much for having me on your show. And first off, is TC, is that how you want to go by? Or
yeah, that's what everybody knows me by. So
all right. Well, pleasure to finally be on your show, and a pleasure to speak to your audience for the first time.
Well, I'm glad that you're calling it a pleasure, because lately a lot of people have been not real pleased with my content, and we know that, and we've talked a little bit, and So I want to get this out of the way. And I told you I wanted to talk about this. And my audience knows I very rarely ever give anybody a heads up on questions I want to ask. But one of the reasons you came to my attention is because as you know, I'm doing some digging into your opponent, Adam Schwarzy. And one of the reasons why I became interested was because there is this accusation that you were the one who turned Adam in to Naval Command. And the accusation originally came from him. And I wanted to give you an opportunity after I, brought it up to explain, because I have, if you don't mind, I'm looking at it right here. He had said, you described your recall as due to circumstances, and this is from his commanding officer. You described your recall as due to circumstances outside your control. This is false. You knew you were recalled due to your own misconduct. You implied you were being investigated only because your opponent alerted the command and only based on your insubordinate comments about public officials. Both are false. You have been instructed multiple times. And then he goes on and to say you were aware of an examination of the evidence that your opponent was contacted during the investigation, but was not the source of that investigation. More importantly, you knew his claims that you were campaigning in violation of DoD and Navy policy were true, yet you chose to mislead the public by implying that your opponent engaged in underhanded politics and the reason you were unable to attend a debate. His own command has said you were not the source. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to explain that so that people understand you didn't run around looking for a chance to rat out an opponent.
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity. And honestly, thank you for what you just read. I was not aware of that information for years until it recently came into my awareness. But yeah, I guess I trust Adam's chain of command when they explicitly state that he was under investigation. My campaign at the time, having recently retired and spoken with my JAG about the specific rules to run for office, as well as receiving GMT. And I mean, it's common knowledge throughout your military training. Every election season, you have the mandatory, 30 minutes or an hour to make sure you understand the rules when it comes to federal and state elections. So yeah, apparently from in that letter you just read, there was obviously multiple investigations going on prior to me contacting his chain of command. We simply asked the question to his chain of command, and we were just trying to resolve the question on, is he a candidate that we should spend resources on to defeat, or is he not allowed to run? My understanding is he was not allowed to run, and we were looking for clarification from his chain of command. And that's when our correspondence began with his chain of command.
Right. And so you were doing your due diligence as a candidate for office going, okay, where do I focus my time and my money and my efforts in a runoff? So,
yep. And unfortunately, I think it sort of checks with chart, I guess, to use a submariner term.
Yeah.
I
was airborne. I don't understand this check with chart stuff. We just jump.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's multiple, I think, issues that Adam seems to be elusive with the truth. And I think that's obviously a red flag before anybody should be our trusted Minnesota State or United States Senator. But yeah, unfortunately, it does appear to be multiple events. I guess Adam seems to point the finger instead of taking on responsibility, saying I made a mistake and moving forward.
Well, and like I said, I don't want to beat that dead horse, but I did want to give you an opportunity so that people could understand that it wasn't what the accusation, and I've heard it multiple times, which is why you came on my radar. And I thought, okay, yeah, we'll talk about it. But you mentioned something else just now that I want people to take note of, because it's in your bio and it's out there and you don't hide from it. You retired medically from the Navy because you kind of had a bit of a career setback that made staying active duty almost impossible.
Yes. Yep. I was diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's disease about 8 years ago now, right after my son was born. Unfortunately, a little tremor in my thumb. I thought I was drinking too much coffee, a routine appointment at Walter Reed, and it turned into a Parkinson's diagnosis about 15 minutes later. So that was a huge curveball, obviously to my career, more importantly, initially to my family. So relying on my faith and family and prayers, I learned to understand the disease and then understand it to the point where I knew I could actually still serve as a commanding officer on a submarine. I had screened early for command and was on my way to take command of a submarine. So I put in multiple sets of medical waivers with the Navy. Unfortunately, the nuclear-powered Navy in charge of the Submarine Force is risk adverse when it comes to
I don't know
commanding officers with a degenerative disease in the brain, and they just don't understand it very well. Why should they? There's not a lot of submariners with Parkinson's. But I did end up getting one more deployment on the USS EISENHOWER in 2020 over to the Middle East. And then I retired in September of 2021, I believe it was.
Yeah. So, and that's something, you know, I've seen through your campaign stuff now as I've been looking, that you embrace it, not in a, you know, like of a badge of honor, but you embrace it. You're like, yeah, here, this is who I am. This is real. And I think that's something that's laudable, because a lot of times people can see the tremor. I mean, clearly we can see the tremor, and people don't know how to respond to that. And it's an awkward, you don't want to ask, are you okay? You know, what's going on? And you're just right out there with it. And like I said, I think that's laudable, because a lot of people will try and hide what a lot of people consider to be a debilitating, life altering, almost to the point where it people that get the diagnosis oftentimes feel like their world's falling apart. And
I just, I look at it, if there's one thing I know how to do, it's shake things up. And that's what I want to do in the United States Senate. So I think it'll actually be, I can use it as a positive.
And Eddie has a sense of humor, folks. This is
but no, on a serious note, I feel blessed. Yes, it did prematurely end my Navy career, but I have an 8 and a 10-year-old, and I mean, obviously, my priority is to be with them and to preserve my longevity, and it has minimal impact on my relationship with my kids and my wife and my family. So for that, I feel very fortunate, very blessed. I went with Velcro shoes for a while and can't really teach them to tie their shoes, but other than that, very little impact. So.
Who ties their shoes anymore anyway? I mean,
one door shuts, another door opens, and that's why I'm trying to continue to serve the great folks in Minnesota by running for the United States Senate.
Well, since you made the decision to run first for a House seat, you tried to unseat the King of Vodka here in Minnesota, and everybody knows, Minnesota is a very tough state to flip seats in. It's a very tough state, especially when those seats are firmly in the grasp of the DFL. But you gave it a shot, and in our preparatory talk, you said you scared him so bad he decided to get out of politics. So, I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, well, he took. He was so scared of the rematch, he had to run against Joe Biden for president, and then he decided to retire from politics. So,
one of the two of you scared him. That's right.
Yes.
So
if you can't beat Joe Biden, I guess in the Democratic Party, it is time to retire.
Yeah, right. There. Again, fair. So you decided to take a shot at the Senate seat. Did you decide to do that once you realized that Tina was stepping down, or had you made that decision already?
Well, following my run, my wife and my run in 2022 against Congressman Phillips, my wife and I sat down and, made a lot of, talked about if we're going to do that again. Obviously, that's sort of the initial conversation. And we thought possibly down the road a little bit, but, short term, we weren't really set on that. And then when Senator Smith decided to retire, and I knew that the fire was sort of lit, that I really was interested, I thought I had some good ideas to offer solutions to the just problems that continue to stack up in Washington, D.C. and St. Paul. I'm an engineer by training and operated nuclear reactors and solved a lot of problems in the United States Navy and the national security sector. And I just see a lack of problem solving and a lack of a attitude to solve problems instead of kicking the can down the road. So I definitely had that fire to get back into it, get back into the political races. And then when Tina decided to retire, I knew that this was the seat I wanted to go for. And ended up cutting back significantly from my work at DARPA. Started working remote, and now I'm back in Minnesota, and then all in for the United States Senate race.
Yes, for my regulars, he said DARPA. Yes, we not everybody that works for DARPA is deep state dark money.
Oh God, I hadn't picked up that thread through here, but I'm one of the good DARPA guys. Says the guy who's trying to not let you know he's not one of the. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, the good guys are on the even floors, the bad guys are on the odd floors. So
I did say thanks. Now we have insider information about how DARPA
there you
works.
go.
So thank you. No, it's a long running joke that, and you're hitting all the buttons with my audience. Harvard, DARPA, you're the pipeline, and you're still running for Senate. But
like I said, my speech at the Minnesota GOP convention after a year behind enemy lines, that was my year at Harvard studying public policy. So
yeah, well, I can't even imagine what that was like for a guy from Minnesota, to be honest with you. Like, not that people from Minnesota can't obviously make it to Harvard because you did, but that's a different animal. It's a very, very different animal.
It was very, honestly, I loved my year there. Great. I met great folks from all over the world. And I was, I graduated Eden Prairie High School, went to University of Notre Dame, and that was in about 2000 I graduated Notre Dame. So I'd spent about 16 years, a lot of it underwater, but definitely not in the academia community, and not really even, too involved with some of the cultural changes that were happening in high school and universities. I was out in Hawaii, multiple submarine deployments. So when I got to Harvard and the first or second, lecture was on implicit biases, I started right there and then I started thinking something's going the wrong direction in our university system.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, trust me, I had to write a paper on implicit bias. When I was working for the sheriff's office as part of our training about implicit bias, and my entire platoon was like, "Can we use your paper and can we all turn it in?" I'm like, it's feeling like a scene from Breakfast Club, at the end where they all write one letter together and give it over. But yeah, I'm like, no, you can't. That's cheating. I did not work on this for 3 days just so you guys can all use it. But since you have all this academia under your belt and now you're running for office, I was really impressed with the paper that you sent me. And strangely enough, and I don't know if that was your intent, I actually think, and I'll let you tell the audience about the paper because I think it says a lot about who you are. And I think your paper actually is probably one of the defense development and defense spending papers that maybe the first I've ever read for somebody running for office that actually, once again, even if it wasn't your intent, is probably one of the strongest America First anti-interventionist type papers I've ever read. And I was impressed by it, honestly. And that's hard for me to do for, people who tend to, even fellow veterans who tend to break a little bit more towards, those people are our enemies. Let's go take them down. So give us a little bit of insight, and then maybe we can let people know where they can find it if they want to read through it.
Well, I think you're being much more complimentary towards than I am. I mean, I thought it was some unique ideas and a good take. But very much thank you for your positive comments. But I just basically discussed a white paper on the unique environment of the undersea environment, and how basically that environment, along with space and cyber, those three domains in military terms, I guess, warfighting domains. So that's space, cyber, and undersea. Due to the physics themselves, offer a level of plausible ambiguity or plausible denial and ambiguous actions, which really if the United States is the leader and uses this to their advantage, can sort of add on to strategic deterrence, which is nuclear power deterrence, and sort of give us a layer before nuclear deterrence to use this type of ambiguous deterrence through the cyber space and undersea domains to help influence our near peer adversaries, and really capitalize on our dominance in the research and technical fields to make sure that we sort of efficiently spend defense dollars to efficiently deter bad actors from challenging us in the future. In the long run, obviously, preventing wars, saving lives, and being actually a good economic investment for the American taxpayer.
And I think that's what we just had this report came out from this downed pilot in Iran who said that he saw the strangest drone swarm he's ever seen in his life. And now this has been verified. If this is not just some pilot who hit his head and is now like seeing things. He reports this in the Defense Department and the State Department have said, yeah, this thing is out there and it's real. And what I was impressed about with your paper was the idea that but that federal government, especially legislative bodies, are not looking in the right directions for national defense. There's still this very much this old mindset that national defense is a lot of, we need to go over there and take them out. And you're saying, no, we've got infrastructure and things here in the US that need to be protected, and we're not doing anything about that. And that's not going to deter these potential hostiles if they know all we're worried about is projecting power into other countries in a tangible, kinetic way. And you're saying, no, we've got infrastructure here. And you brought up the example of just Minnesota. If somebody took out the power grid in Minnesota, we're totally unprepared for that.
Yep.
And that's why, and I've been saying this for years, and that to me is why I look at it and go, this is an American first policy, really, is like, what, sure, let's spend some money on defense, but what are we spending money on defense for? Is it to build more bombs? Is it to build more missiles and drones, or are we doing something to defend the homeland? And so I feel like, or my take on it, I should say, it's not a feeling, but my take on it is that that's the right direction for somebody who's a veteran, somebody who is trying to get into the Senate. And if a person understands the difference between the House and the Senate is primarily focused on, when it comes to political and geopolitical issues, is focused on foreign affairs, dealing with foreign affairs, dealing with foreign adversaries, foreign threats. And the House is supposed to be focusing on domestic issues. And that issue right there is a great place for a House and a Senate to come together and say, we can tackle this from both of our areas of responsibility and really make America first a strong position for someone who's interested in fighting for it. So props on the paper.
Yes. Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, just not to dwell on this the whole time, but yeah, to your listeners, I'll definitely, or TC, if you want to shoot that out, I don't know if you have already, but feel free. And really the term I came up with was scalable, ambiguous, precise deterrence. And again, those three sectors, underwater, cyber, and space, or underwater, cyber, and space, have that unique physics element where you can have this scalable, ambiguous, precise deterrence to, again, effectively and efficiently deter both state actors and non-state actors, and hopefully, like I said, in an efficient manner and minimizing any loss of life. So thanks, TC, for reading that, first of all, and for the good comments. And yeah, I'll definitely make that available. And TC, to your point, I mean, I've sat at in hearings. I was a military defense fellow on Capitol Hill for a year. I worked in the Pentagon, working on big budgets, worked in the Secretary of Defense's office trying to get the border security wall funded. And all those instances were multiple examples of between mostly at the Congress, not really. The military was said, hey, these ships are too old, too inefficient. The maintenance is too expensive. We want to, stop this line and buy this weapon, or, stop this tank and buy this new weapon. And over again, I saw both the House and the Senate, demand, due to the constituent services of these senators and House members to keep military weapons, continue to buy those, even though the Pentagon is telling the Senate those are out of date. And to me, these three things that I identify in this paper, that's the future of deterrence. So that's where we need to be investing.
Well, it seems like most of the time, and I don't know why it would seem this way, but it's almost like people defend these projects because, I don't know, maybe they're, bought and paid for by lobbyists, but I would never imply that.
Well, and yeah, I mean,
outright.
And I mean, there's clearly there's bad actors, all over the place, but there's also, I mean, as a senator, or theoretically, say the senator in Minnesota, and there's a Minnesota company making a bunch of parts for the Joint Strike Fighter. I want Minnesotans to have jobs. The Joint Strike Fighter is a good thing. So, I would be theoretical, there's an aspect where I'm trying to keep jobs in Minnesota to defend the Joint Strike Fighter. And that, not to, go all over the place on your TC, but to me, that's exactly why we need less partisanship and more senators and House members voting what's good for their district, what's good for their constituents, what's good for America, and also what checks with their moral compass. For example, a Joint Strike Fighter, say they're building that in Texas and Minnesota. All Minnesota senators, Republican or Democrat, should support that. But maybe everyone in Montana, Utah, and Wyoming, they're looking at it straight pragmatically without their constituent jobs in mind. And those would be the folks that would, probably vote it down if it didn't make sense for our national security. I think the partisan divide has a lot of second and third order effects that were not really considered.
Well, I think you just, frankly, what happens is most people get to the House or the Senate and they completely forget that there are such things as second and third order effects. It's what they're and for them, the first order is, how do I keep this position?
Correct.
And so I like to hear you say that the partisanship is a problem. That we could have an entire different show talking about the two-party system and the problem that it has created within the Democrat and the Republican sides of the two-party uniparty. But as you look at your campaign, you admittedly know it's you're going into a primary season that is hotly contested. Running against, for lack of better terminology, you're running against a field of candidates in the primary that are supported with a vast amount of money coming from outside of the state. There is a very, very strong push to have somebody who's a Minnesota insider supported by outside Minnesota money. And to me, that is never a good thing. And you've got some hurdles to get over between now and August. And I know you've implied already that it's an uphill battle. How do you think it's looking going into August? Are you able to get out? Are you meeting people? And what's the feedback as far as, are you hearing that, nope, my mind's made up, I'm only voting for the endorsed candidate, or I think this is the time I'm going to finally not vote just for the endorsed candidate? What kind of feedback are you getting?
Well, first off, this is my studio, of course. Just kidding. I don't really have the resource for a studio, but I think my son's a little cockeyed here.
Oh, nobody expects professionalism here. Look at my books up here. They're all over the place.
Maybe that'll work, but
nobody expects better.
There you go. But no, to your point, you're spot on. I mean, specifically with Michelle Tafoya's campaign, her main supporter, or really her kickoff, was the National Republican Senatorial Committee, supporting her, and Senator Tim Scott endorsing her, with no one talking to any Minnesotans before that. So Minnesotans had absolutely zero input on who the national DC power brokers are endorsing, not supporting or not saying, thanks for meeting with us. We'll see how it goes at the primary or the convention, or once you get in the field a little bit. It was, oh, you're Michelle Tafoya. You're somewhat, a decent name ID. You might be wealthy, so we're going to endorse you without talking to any Minnesotans. So yeah, that should feel like a
just to
slap in the
show,
face.
I had no idea who she was.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I mean,
who's
TC, when I tell folks, what I'm running for, they say, so whose job or who you running against, and whose job was it? I said it was Senator Tina Smith, and their first answer is, who's Tina Smith? And then I say, well, I'm running against Michelle Tafoya, and their second comment is, well, who's Michelle Tafoya? So, jumping to the end of your question, I'm feeling very good about where we are right now, honestly, and a lot of that is not because of I've had some decent recent polling, but a lot of it's because Minnesotans, I think we're meeting Minnesotans where they are, not on the issues, well, on the issues to some extent, but more on the timing. The average Minnesotan wasn't paying attention to this election 6 months ago, 9 months ago, when the NRSC was picking Michelle Tafoya to be your candidate, and rightfully so. Minnesotans have a lot going on, a lot on their plate, where they're not worried about a national election, 15 months down the road. But right now we have some resources coming in. Speaking of that, Tom Weiler 2026, chip in for real change. Any and all donations are greatly appreciated. But we have some resources coming in, and we're going to be on basically a 45-day sprint, I think, between now and the primary on August 11th. We're going to drive, starting in Austin, Minnesota last weekend. We're going to tour southern Minnesota, western Minnesota, northern Minnesota, and then swing back into the metro in early August. And we're just going straight grassroots, knocking on doors, speaking at the train stations throughout the rural parts of Minnesota, and we're going to win this the old way by shaking
whistle
hands,
stops,
talking to voters, and listening to what's on the mind and the concerns of Minnesotans.
What would you say sets Tom Weiler apart from a Schwarzy and a Tafoya and a White, and I think that's all of you.
Can I just go with a lot?
Well, yeah, well,
no. The biggest thing is
not
the biggest
as
thing
precise as I would.
The biggest reason why I'm running is I think I can best serve the folks in Minnesota as their representative and their senator, but representing their concerns and desires in the United States Senate. That's first and foremost why I'd run, and it's why I am running. And the reasons I think I could serve as their best choice for senator is because I have experience and knowledge and a problem-solving acumen that I developed over 25 years in the national security sector. And on my website, and I hope everyone checks that out, you'll notice basically a Senate candidate quality and effectiveness spreadsheet that lays out every every committee in the Senate, and then it just colors green, red, or yellow depending on how much knowledge or professional experience each of the candidates has in that field. And it's not even close. Just by my military career, I've had direct experience with obviously military, veterans affairs, infrastructure, nuclear power, border security, budgets, huge budgets, billion-dollar budgets. So that type of experience, I think I can leverage and help make decisions and solve problems in DC and in St. Paul that just straight up help improve the lives of Minnesotans. And that's fundamentally why I'm running.
So you brought up nuclear power, and yes, folks, he's a nuclear engineer, so I guess you could say he's a nuclear scientist to some degree or another. So I've now had a nuclear scientist.
There you go.
By my own estimation on the show.
Yeah, I'll go with engineer, but scientist sounds good too.
So you brought up nuclear power, and we are in an affordability crunch. We are in a infrastructure crunch. Try saying that in a sentence. Woof. We know it. Our grid is out of date. We cannot keep running the grid the way it is, especially with this push towards data centers being what they are. And everybody's talking, oh, we have, wind. And I have a good friend, the turbine guy. His channel here on YouTube is great. But his wind turbine ideas aren't about these giant wind turbines all across, doing wind farming. He's talking about personalized wind turbines getting off the grid individually.
Like windmills?
Yeah, wind turbines on your own property. Like,
Yeah. No, it's the windmill concept. It was old. Now
yeah,
it's new. Yeah.
yeah. Except he doesn't want to scale it up. He wants to scale it down like it used to be, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And that's a battle. Solar is ugly. It's not as environmentally friendly as they try to make it out to be. And I've been sitting here after doing a lot of research and reading, not understanding the science behind it. My brain doesn't work that way. I don't see math the way you do. I see it as a foreign language. I bet you probably embrace it as primary language. But I look at nuclear and I say there's a lot about nuclear that makes sense, and it is by far the safest, cleanest form of energy that the United States could lean on. And if we were to implement a plan like a modular system like France and Germany are moving towards, where instead of building giant reactors all over the place, we can build systems that are set up to be added onto modular in a modular fashion to increase output. Is that something you think is feasible? And do you think that at the federal level, the House and the Senate, the congressional apparatus should be looking at encouraging nuclear energy across the country, or should we just stick to our old, carbon-based system and trust that the infrastructure is not going to collapse?
No, I definitely agree. Nuclear is part of the solution. But just a few things to step back on, I think, before we have any energy conversation, which these things aren't typically discussed, but to me, they're just fundamental in the conversation. Whenever we're talking about energy, we have to talk about it as basically kilowatt per dollar, or kilowatt hour per dollar, however, whichever one. But that's all energy is to 99% of Americans, which is what it should be. Is I need the energy to support my life, to support my job, to support my business, and I need it in a cost-effective manner. And so you have to look at it as a whole on how much is this nuclear power plant or this solar station. What is the price per energy unit that factory or that wind turbine farm? How much cost per kilowatt is it going to cost me to get that energy so I can live my life? And the other part of it is the carbon footprint. You have to look at everything from basically, start of life to end of life. And for a nuclear power plant, for example, once they're up and running, yes, they're carbon free. They do take a lot of carbon to develop the plant and to build the plant. But nuclear power is still by far, once it's up and running, and if you take in lifetime costs and lifetime environmental effects, nuclear power is a great part of the solution to our both power and infrastructure. When you say nuclear power is safe, it's definitely safe. Knock on wood. I've been part of the greatest nuclear training force in the world, the United States Submarine Force, and we've seen millions and millions of miles underway on nuclear power with no incidences. With that said, though, I also deployed to Japan for Operation Tomodachi after the Fukushima power plant incident in 2011. So I have seen firsthand the potential effects of nuclear catastrophes. So that is something that, to your point, small modular reactors do a very good job on minimizing that threat. And yeah, in general, small modular reactors, I think, are part of the solution. I do think large nuclear power plants should be part of the solution as well as considering natural gas is a very clean way. A carbon, obviously produces some carbon, but relative to other aspects, a very clean way to produce energy. So it's sort of an all of the above approach, but again, it has to have those two factors: how much does it cost, and what's its lifetime output. Those are the things that I would like to focus on as a United States Senator, just try to improve our energy grid.
Yeah, well, most of the time I bring up the modular reactors, and most people look at me and their eyes glaze over, and they're like, "What are you even talking about right now?" So, but I have exhausted all of my intelligence and information on nuclear reactors with that statement right there. Modular.
But yeah, they're a good source. Because one, they're sort of, as they indicate, somewhat modular. They can, if you were building a data center in a community, and the community rightfully so says we don't want our energy costs to go up, you build a data center. Amazon also has to subsidize the small modular reactor, and then hopefully the data centers powered with extra power going back to the municipality, and you know, and you can sort of move the ball forward.
So I'm going to ask you a policy question now that's on everybody's mind. And this is not a gotcha. This is just what everybody's thinking about, because, you know, we now have both mentioned data centers. There's a lot going on. People are opposing data centers for a lot of different reasons. Some people are just because they think they're an eyesore and they don't want it in their backyard, which, you know, fair. Others are opposing them because of the drain on the local energy infrastructure. And those of us that are doing the research understand that we can make up for the energy drain and resource drain. And yeah, they're unsightly, but so are concrete plants, and so are, you know, smelting plants and whatnot. So are refineries. They're unsightly. No one wants to live near them or smell them. The greatest problem when you talk to people today is from both sides of the aisle is they're waking up to the idea of constant surveillance. And it goes back all the way to, you know, the Patriot Act, where we all of a sudden developed FISA. And that's been a hot button issue in the congressional circles, House and Senate. You know, what are we going to do about FISA? As you look at surveillance of the American people by the American government, how would you address that if you were in office? And, you know, what would your position be on how do we go about I don't even like saying protecting the people, because those, as the saying goes, those who give up a little bit of who give up their freedom for a little bit of security deserve neither. But how would you address it? When you look at it, the way FISA's been abused and turned against the American people by the American government at the federal level, and not just at the state and local, but at the federal level, how do we get out from underneath that burden? And do you think we should? And if we should, how?
This is you know, not the answer anyone likes, but there is a balance, and there's a balance between, you know, security of Americans and unfortunately privacy. I mean, obviously folks should have privacy, but there's a balance between safety of Americans and gathering or understanding the necessary threat sectors to keep Americans safe. And of course you understand, you know, that from your background. But that to me is why we need more people of character in the Senate and the House and decision-making positions in the federal government, and less characters. And because these are difficult problems that have to be balanced on that continuum of what keeps us safe and what is a straight violation of our Constitution. Obviously, there's big, bold lines that you cannot cross. But at the same light, we do want to keep Americans safe. So the FISA, you know, the details on each and every FISA Act, I'm, you know, definitely not going to talk to, because I'm not in on those. I understand a lot about that security balance from my time as a submarine officer, deploying on an aircraft carrier, and being a top secret control officer for multiple years during my submarine deployments. So there is a balance, and we need to ensure that sort of competent individuals are helping us set that balance.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know what, I like that, because at least you were honest and said it was going to be an answer that not everybody was.
Yeah, and I mean, but I mean, so that to me, like there's certain things, like, and so maybe some people should put on earmuffs, but guess what? As an aspiring senator, I don't know the answer to healthcare. I'm not. I mean, I have a lifetime disease, but I just don't. I can't figure out how to crack that nut yet. And your FISA question, I just don't think there's a.
I appreciate the honesty. You don't know.
Yeah, I don't think there's a clear answer on that. But things like how to keep America safe, how to improve our energy sector, how to, you know, properly budget, how to hold Congress accountable by making them do their job and pass a budget every year. Those are the things I have solutions to, and they're actually on my website, tomweiler2026.com. But yeah, TC, I mean, there's certain things that I I don't have an answer to yet. Maybe when I get into the weeds, of FISA, the law driving that, I hope to have better answers for you. I honestly do.
The more you get out, the more you're going to meet weirdo libertarians like myself who are going to start asking those questions. And those are the people that, whoever the Republicans, whoever, between you and all of your opponents, whoever they put up, they're going to, a good friend of mine is running for Senate as a libertarian. And she knows how hard it's going to be for her to cross, that finish line with any chance of pulling enough to even come close to winning, let alone topping her performance in the last Senate race, which she set a record for Minnesota for pulling in votes. But that's something that I think especially liberty-minded Republicans are going to have to start focusing on. Is they going to have to start understanding why liberty-minded people like libertarians and independents are shying away from the Republican vote these days, is because there are a lot who they don't know how to answer those questions. And that's not a dig at you. You can't know everything. Obviously it's impossible.
But I mean,
it is something people need to focus on.
And at the same line, I don't want to shy away. I mean, it's a
Right.
great question. It's just unfortunately there's that answer has to be nuanced. And again, I hate that word, but I actually, to try to pull your libertarian listeners back in. First off, August 11th, please go and vote in the Republican primary and vote for me. But I really am. There's a lot of aspects that I have that are very libertarian, and a lot of that is based on I guess a central thing we both agree on is our government is way exponentially way too large, and it's too large from both a government theory or a social theory context, but it's also just too large from the straight. We both at the federal and state government, we've seen firsthand, they have no idea even how to count the money coming in or control the money going out. So the answer to that is not more government; it's significantly less government. And of course, I would imagine most of your libertarian listeners agree with that. Sort of.
Yeah, they would definitely agree with the significantly less.
Yes.
Especially if the significantly less was none. But we also are realists, most of us. Oh geez, I have to interrupt for just a second. Thank you, Skipper. Skipper's my Marine co-host over at Veteran Nation. And he just gave 9 gift memberships. So thank you, Skipper. That's very, very kind of you. The channel appreciates it. And I don't have a soundboard that says I like money. So I'll just say I like money. And then he gave a super chat.
Nice.
But I'll have Skipper reach out to you. Maybe he can, get you on Veteran Nation sometime. So
that would be outstanding.
I know you got stuff to do. You probably skipped a parade to be here today. That's what.
That is true. I had a Navigator, but I hopefully can hit some afterwards.
So I know you've got we're coming up close to a hard out. But I'm going to ask a question. I try to ask this of pretty much everybody when I have them on, as far as those that are running for office. Don't betray any secrets. But if Tom was picking for himself his greatest weakness, running for office to be a senator, what's the one thing that you look at now and you say, this is an area that I know I need to be stronger in or better on?
Can I give 2 weaknesses?
As long as you're comfortable giving your opponents all the ammo.
Yeah. Well, one of them, like we already mentioned, sort of, is healthcare. Healthcare is a huge issue in this country, and it's there's a lot of simple bumper stickers that a lot of politicians use, to get elected, like you're going to be able to keep your doctor. But if you want cheaper healthcare, is not as good as healthcare, and that's there's fundamental parts of healthcare that everyone seems to ignore when they're talking about solutions. But if it's cheap, it's probably not as good. If it's expensive, it's probably better, and it's expensive. So that's one area, that is rightfully so. I don't have a good answer to healthcare yet, but like I said, I'm working on it and I'm continuing to research that. And really the other one is, and I actually think this is a positive, but politically speaking, it could be a weakness. I do try to both listen and have the comments I hear and discuss, like the conversation we just had from the libertarian perspective, influencing my position on certain issues. And so I hope that isn't looked at hypocritical. To me, it's a good, you got to look in the mirror and realize if I now know something more than I did yesterday, and therefore my position on this issue and that issue has changed, you got to own up to that, and that should be a good thing. But politically, sometimes that looked at as a liability. But to me, we're always learning and getting smarter every day. And as you do that, you hopefully identify maybe unique new ways to solve challenges. And that's what I hope to do, is solve a lot of the problems that Minnesotans are facing, and fundamentally just improve Minnesotans' lives and properly represent them in the United States Senate, because Minnesota clearly has a lack of leadership and a lack of proper representation at the federal level specifically for the last 20 years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Minnesota's got problems, and
Yep. And I figure, there's 47 lawyers, there's 47 senators right now who have law degrees, and there's one engineer in the Senate. Clearly, we need to stop talking about problems and we need to start solving them. So I think it's time to get one more engineer in the United States Senate.
What the Senate needs, present company excluded. I don't, I'm not taking this way. What the Senate needs, and I don't know what your view is on him, but what the Senate needs is like 3 Thomas Masseys right now at this point in time. I mean, that guy is. We should all try to be Thomas Massey. So we should, the self-sustaining and just smiling even when he's picking on you.
So. I think. I agree with some of the positions that Thomas Massey had, and I also agree with you. There's I guess I don't agree with all his stances, but I'll leave it at that.
I'm sure there'd probably be somewhere, if I had Thomas Massey on the show, that sooner or later I'd ask him a question that we would disagree on. So Thomas, if you're watching this, give me a chance to disagree with you. No.
There you go. Good plug.
Two questions that are, and you can give as brief an answer as you'd like. First, to his credit, Trump has proposed a republic-wide constitutional carry proposal. Would you support that?
Again, I would want to read it in more detail. I don't know if you have. I don't know if he's expressed more detail. But yeah, that seems to make sense unless there's certain caveats that I'm not tracking.
No, that's a fair answer. And there are libertarians that are debating this issue right now, because we're asking, like, should there even have to be legislation to make constitutional carry? Like, would legislation to make constitutional carry even be constitutional? So,
yeah, and I think it would. And again, it does come back to me secondary effects. Especially if that were the case, if that becomes the law of the land, then you would need, there needs to be people informed, and there needs to be sort of a new established norm. So that's my short take on that. But maybe it's the engineer in me, but a lot of it depends on the details.
Well, yeah, that could definitely be. Well, either for me, it's the philosopher in me, or in your case, the details from an engineering perspective. And the other one is, and this is not
Sorry, real quick. What you hit on there is just it's something that I'm working with. As I run for political office, it's that battle between like pragmatic policy and government theory. And that type of stuff. So your point, I think, is spot on. That's a tough. You always got to navigate that.
The other one I'm going to ask, and once again, I'm not looking for condemnation or affirmation. And I know this is not going to shock you, but there is a lot of talk, not just in Minnesota, but across the country right now, about our entangling alliances, especially with countries like, our greatest ally, Israel. And there is a lot of talk right now about why are we so deeply enmeshed with them, and and there's a lot of pushback. The minute you even ask a question, there's lots of insult, lots of attack rhetoric aimed at anybody even asking the question. Without relying on the old trope of, oh, but we need them in the Middle East, a lot of Americans are kind of getting weary of all the money that, and this is a foreign affairs issue, all the money that we, the wage slave tax cattle, pay out every year to Israel. And we're saying at some point, can we start cutting the purse strings until life is more affordable here in the US? And literally, that's what I'm hearing from people on the street. People that would have never talked about it before are now talking about it. They're like, okay, I know I didn't pay enough attention to this in the past, but now I am. How would you address that if somebody were to ask you that question?
Well, I absolutely agree with the fact American foreign policy needs to have America first. I mean, that's the point of American foreign policy. And Israel foreign policy has Israeli first. And they definitely agree on a lot of things, but they're not going to agree on all things. So we just need to make sure any decision we make for either funding Israel or not funding Israel or specific weapons programs, that needs to be in the best interest of the American taxpayer. So yeah, I definitely agree that there's one, that this is a hot button issue. Israel, I've had some experience in Israel and experience working with their military forces. They're great military officers, enlisted men, just great military in general, very professional. And that doesn't mean that we should give them a blank check. It means that they're a professional, strong ally in the region. I think we need to help. We need to help when it's in America's best interest, and we need to tell Israel no if what they think they're going to do or what they want our support for is not in the American taxpayer best interest.
Well, I actually appreciate that answer, because I think it's a topic that a lot of people there's not enough nuance on it, and at the same time, some of the people talking about it like way over nuance it, and it does fall back to the trope of but they're our greatest ally. They're the only democracy in the Middle East. it's like, eh. So
and there's an element where peace is cheaper than war. And so, but I'm definitely, I've driven nuclear powered submarines for 20 years. The only way to have peace, relative to human nature, is to have a strong deterrent power. So, but I think in the Middle East, I mean, it comes a point of, I was traveling through the Middle East, and we got to go into the West Bank, and you drive up on a refugee camp that's 47 years old. You can't have a refugee camp for 47 years. There's
at some point they're not refugees anymore, folks.
Exactly. And honestly, that whose fault is that? Is it Israel's? Is it, the West Bank? But at the end of the day, people need to say, snap the rope basically and say, let's establish peace. And I give President Trump a lot of credit. He's definitely, focused on peace in the Middle East. No one's going to get everything they want. But if we stop shooting at each other, it'll be better for all Americans, and better for all folks in the region, and cheaper to the American taxpayer.
Well, right now it feels like more like we're getting pieces in the Middle East instead of peace, especially after the last 24 hours. But
yeah,
we're on your heart out. So give everybody your final thoughts, and I'll then let you go so that you can get to your parade, and then I promise I won't say anything terrible or endorse you. So
as long as you follow up with the terrible thing and then say, check out his website. This is what he said, that terrible thing at TomWeiler2026.com. But
well, you did it yourself. So
appreciate you having me on your show. Please, for all your listeners, again, check out my website, and also feed me some questions. I am wanting to obviously talk to libertarians, understand your perspective, and I look to hopefully earn your votes, both August 11th in the primary and November 3rd. So please take a look at my website, and really it's that first page. I list about, I think, the 10 biggest problems that I've heard from Minnesotans and my proposed solutions. So
you're going to
NTC, pleasure to talk to you and all your listeners, and have a great rest of the day.
Well, you're going to be getting an invite to a pre-primary debate for all primary candidates and candidates running for office. And I just wanted to drop that on you at the end here.
Outstanding.
I will actually be one of the moderators. So I'm going to come in as a libertarian and moderate. So it means I have to set rules, which is just, what?
Yeah, we should just have a free for all, right?
Yeah, just everybody fight it out. Let whoever comes out on top.
There we go. Just one mic and let it go.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you go get your parade, and I will talk us out of here, and you can get on and go rub elbows and don't kiss babies anymore. I don't think they're allowed to do that.
That's true. That's true. But well, thank you all very much. Remember, TomWeiler2026.com. Let's chart a new and better course for Minnesota.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. That was not a side. Just, you guys know me. I like to talk when I'm doing my show, and it's very hard when I'm interviewing politicians because I'm always thinking of, like, let me interrupt here. And I'm like, no, I'm going to let them talk. I need to learn to let people talk more, because most of the time they're either going to end up making a really good point or they're going to give me something I can pick on them about. But no, like I said, I became aware of Tom because of the accusations against him. And I'm like, you know what? Let's reach out. Let's talk to him. Let's find out how where he's at. The one thing I want to say is that at least he has the moxie to admit when he doesn't know enough about a topic to talk about it. And that's something lacking in the vast majority. I would say 98% of the people running for office. And this was reinforced to me in elementary school and junior high and high school. And it was definitely reinforced to me in the military. And then even when I got into the law enforcement world, the answer to a question is not, oh, I don't know, but let me go back and, I will find out the answer and come back and tell you. And that sounds counterintuitive, but it's not. And that was really driven home to me in the military, and then also into the law enforcement world when I was a deputy in the detention center. At the point that you're being asked the question, if you don't know, just say, I don't know. I just really don't know. Because at least that's honest, right? That's the honest answer in that situation. And that's what's lacking in a lot of people. Most people ask a question, the politician hears the question, and they feel like, well, this question is a hot button issue for this person, so I better have an answer. And so they try to BS or buffalo their way through it. And most people who have a hot button issue, well, they're going to understand that this person doesn't know the answer to their question. Like there's an individual that's running for Senate here in Minnesota. That said, I don't answer the question on abortion because if my true position on abortion ever came out, I wouldn't be able to be a Republican candidate for office. That's the problem, folks, is that that's not an honest politician. That's a deceptive person. And that's scary. And so I do want to give Tom props for at least having the wherewithal to say, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question effectively. So better to not answer it and say, this is my solution than to say, I just don't know. It's better to say I don't know. And so I'll give him credit. Like, no bones about it. Everybody knows that I'm going to be voting for Rebecca Whiting in the general election. That's who I am. The question that people do need to ask themselves right now is, if you're a Republican or a Democrat, if you're an independent, if you're, a grassroots, if you're a constitutionalist party, whatever, in the state of Minnesota, but even in your own neck of the woods, wherever you happen to be, as you look at your primary season, you need to say to yourselves, who am I supporting and why in the primary? And if you can't find a person, and no one's going to be 100% right in line with your views, it's just impossible. But if you can't find a person that most closely represents your philosophy, your socio-political philosophy, should you vote? Because I think that's one of the greatest problems that the United States has right now is there's a lot of holding your nose and going to the polls and saying, I'm voting for the lesser of two evils. And I guess the reality, and I'm not implying that my esteemed guest is evil. I'm talking on a deeper philosophical level here now. A lot of people do hold their nose and vote for the lesser of two evil, and then you end up with evil. And then you get 10, 15, 20, 30, 35, 40 years down the road, and you're going, man, how did we end up with such an evil government? Well, it's because you kept buying the lie that your only choice was to vote for the lesser of two evils. And so then only evil people get elected into these positions? Is that what you're saying? Like, no, you have to do, and Tom had said some of this, you have to vote for the person who's right for the position. Not the right person for the way the position is handled today, but the way the position should be handled in the eyes of our founding fathers. That's the person you should be looking for. And for you, if that's Tom Weiler, if that's whoever the Democrats put up, which I cannot possibly imagine being anybody who actually wants our country run the way our founding fathers saw it, but not who has the most potential to win, because somebody who's totally wrong for your state might be the person that has the most potential to win, but who most represents the views of our founding fathers. That's what you have to do. And if you can find that person in the Republican Party, vote for him. If you can find that person in the Democrat Party, vote for him. If you can find that person in the Libertarian Party, vote for him. But we also need to be willing to have conversations like I had today with Tom. I guarantee you there are strong places. There are very strong places of disagreement between Tom and I if we really got into pushing on it. And if we had more than an hour, and that's, once again, he's got a campaign to run. If we had more than an hour, I guarantee you we would have been able to get into more of it. But I did ask a couple of hot button questions for people today. What are you going to do, as you lean into constitutional carry? What's it going to look like as we start to see people really now backing away from funding Israel? The next crop of people coming up into political office are going to have to deal with the answer of what do we do about Israel? And I don't mean just as an ally, but it's a problem for the United States right now, folks. If you're not paying attention, if you look at the National Defense Authorization Act for 2027, it was Section 224. Now, I think it's Section 219. Inextricably links intelligence for Israel and the United States. For the first time in the history of this country, Congress is moving to make our intel tied directly into Israel's intel, and that now Israel will be able to access intel and surveillance data on the American people via the Defense Authorization Act 2027. That should terrify you. That's a problem. And anybody running for office needs to be able to look at that and not make statements. And I appreciate what Wanda was saying about some of this, but not just from the aspect of what's happening in Gaza. That's bad enough. But the idea that our federal government is giving, for lack of better terminology, Israeli intelligence access to the American people codified in law, that should terrify you. Should terrify you. What does that doesn't bode well for people who ask hard questions. Every single candidate for office should be ready to answer that question. And there's only one good answer for that question. No, we will not allow that. So, folks, I appreciate you guys tuning in, hearing what Tom, had to say. And, once again, it was a short show for me. Even when I'm doing my own, I tend to go long, but this was a short show for me today. And I would love for an opportunity to be able to, have Tom or anybody else who's running for office in Minnesota. The platform's open. Anybody else who's running for office in the United States. My show is viewed by people all over the country and even out of the country. So, if you know somebody that's running for office and they, want to sit down with somebody real, not just, a TV news interviewer, anchor, but if you know somebody that's running for office, send them my way. I'll gladly have them on. I'll ask my questions from my libertarian perspective, no matter what their position is. And I'll just continue to be me. Just to give you guys a heads up, I would love to, I'm trying to remember to put the link in the description. Still looking for some partnership over on Give, Send, Go. And the partnership comes with unfettered access, depending on what level of partnership you choose to join at through Give, Send, Go. We'll give you unfettered access for at least a short time to my behind the paywall on Substack, where I'm writing my personal memoirs about my life, my experiences. I'll also be working on a memoir or biography about my change in perspective and the end of my time in the law enforcement world. And I was glad to have you here, Wanda. Thank you very much. But so I'm working, like I said, on my personal memoirs. That is actually called Living in Haunted Houses: Essays on Life, Abuse, and the Trauma of Memory. I'm also launched my fictions collection of fiction. It's Tales from Harper's Hill. It's going to be a series of short fiction and longer fiction that is they're all going to be directly tied to the imaginary mythical town of Harper's Hill. And it's probably some of the best writing I've ever done when it comes to fiction, as I'm working on it now. And that's not coming from me. That's coming from a reader who I share my stuff with, and he knows who he is, and so it touches my heart when I get that kind of feedback. Wanda, I'll do that. I thought I had already, but anyway. And so then I will, like I said, I'll be working on the other one will be the memoir, the biography about the end of my career and the change in my perspective and how I stopped being a blind statist, because I was a blind statist for a very long time. And it just took years and years and years of just unraveling. And so I'll be working on that. So I'm going to be doing another stream, at least one tomorrow. I'm not sure which one I'm going with for content, but I'm doing another one tomorrow. We're also going to be doing at least 2 next week. I'm going to be doing a Friday stream, a rare Friday stream, because I am blessed to have the day off with pay on July 3rd. The company I work for does that for us. They give us the day off with pay so we can enjoy a longer 4th of July weekend. I don't know how I feel about celebrating the birth of the United States this year, considering the direction we're headed. It's a dichotomy for me. 250 years. If you know anything about empires, the United States is an empire, and the empires tend to have a lifespan of about 250 years before they collapse. And I think we are looking at a very strong potential of a collapse of this empire, more than anybody cares to admit. Yeah, we do need a rebirth. But so I'll be doing that. a very, very particular, very important one. It's going to be related to the date of July 3rd, not to the birth of this country. And I'm probably going to be doing at least one on Saturday, and if not one on Sunday as well. I'm going to be covering some stories, continuing to cover several stories that I've been working on over the last year. And we're not done with any of the agencies. We're not done talking about the Minnesota State Patrol and Trooper Ryan Moser or Trooper Shane Roper. The Mostad family I'm not stopping. We're still telling their story. We're still going to be telling the story of Jamie Lyle Lucas. We're going to continue to talk about the Cass County Sheriff's Office and all of the garbage they've got going on up there. And I'm digging into some other stories. And my researcher, Natalie, God bless her. If I could pay her, I would. If I had the money to pay her, I would. But that lady, I'll tell you what, boy, howdy, do I run her through the ringer every week and put her through her paces, as the saying goes. So once again, a shout out to all the channel members, to all the viewers, all the subscribers. Thank you so much. We're pushing up to that 5,000 mark, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. I know everybody goes, that's an unsuccessful channel. Well, for me, it's a success. I will take 5,000. I'll take what I have, but I take 5,000 any day. And I'll take whatever views we can get. So make sure you share this out and share my other content. Go check out the shorts. I'm putting out a lot of shorts about Adam Schwarzy right now. And I just don't want that man to get into the Senate. He can't. For the love of God, that man cannot get into the Senate. Check it all out. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. I'm going to do a little bit of landscaping work. I'm going to make some fresh pico de gallo, and then I'm going to cook. I am making very good roasted Mexican style chicken, and I'm going to be serving it with a creamy cilantro lime rice. And I'm hungry now for bringing it up. But anyway, you guys have a good rest of the day. And until tomorrow or the next time, fight for your freedom, it is yours. Fight for your liberty, it belongs to you. And sic semper tyrannis.
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30. Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.